for the data space initiative for smart and sustainable cities and communities. And then you have Justine here, who is from Eurocities. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm from Eurocities, the network of cities in Europe, and I work on this project on work package 2, so I lead the governance work for the data space for smart and sustainable cities and community for the preparatory action work.
Yes, okay, will be done. And then we also have Timo, who is actually now working on the live stream stuff. But although you see his back, his face, and he is actually.
Hello.
You want to say it? I will do it. So he's part of the work, the DEC work package, so work package 3, and he also brings in a city's perspective. Then we have Margarita.
Yes, hi everyone. So I'm here mainly to support on the administrative part and whenever you need some support from the coordination. This is it.
And then finally, Frank.
I'm the chair of Copenhagen Smart Cities, and I mainly work on boring stuff and strategy, which is not so boring.
So now we'd like to hear from you. Please ask away. There's a deadline. It's very formal. It's a very informal thing. We would like to hear how would you like to contribute. What are the challenges? How can we help? Anyone?
Yes. Yes. So covering the province of South Holland and stating their interest in joining such an initiative. We are not yet sure who to partner with, and maybe we won't get a sort of consortium before the 1st of December. Will there be some market, some matchmaking happening after December as well when we express our interest on our own? Do you have matchmaking events planned?
It just since you're governance.
Yeah, I think that would be a plan. So I think we will have the list of what are the different use cases you investigate, and then we will bring people that have similar interests together and bring synergy that way. Yeah. I don't know, Martin, if you want to add anything?
I think we can be even more concrete,
Yeah.
because on the 20th of December,
There you go.
I know it's very close to Christmas, there is the tech subgroup meeting in the review, but just before that, there is the supporters meeting. So if you've signed the we support, if you're a company and you're applying, you can be there. So that's from 1 to 2, I think, and then from 2 to 4 is the tech subgroup. So that's a very concrete time, so it's not before the 7th, but it's taking advantage of now the contacts and that. And then we have our annual event on the 17th and 18th of January, and the evening before there is the Council of Cities dinner, which will be chaired by. Sorry, I point to you, Paolo from Porto, from Porto. So on the evening on the 16th there will be this dinner, and I think those are very concrete and very good touch points, not just dinner, but also the 2 days where we will certainly have a session on this. I mean, we're in good time. What we need now is, of course, you all need to find out who are there, but also we need to find out, so what is it actually that you need? So it's also for us to understand how to best facilitate. I mean, we can say on the side, we also do the testing and experimentation facility. Rick and others are part of that as well. Smart communities starting in January, where these pilots can very, I think, synergetically be part of you are needing the security work there, in fact. So if you have a data space pilot that can also use some AI or robotics or whatever, so you can find these synergies with it. But it can be quite complex. So we try to, I think, over the next year essentially, to have good meeting points and information sessions. The 20th of December will be together with the Commission. So you can both hear what they say and what we say, and perhaps it will be somewhat coordinated.
Who is next? Any other question? Did this answer your question, or?
I definitely provided some information.
We have.
Then I have a question.
Please,
Okay, so we expressed our interest the 2nd of December.
by the second.
By the 2nd, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So afterwards, there will be some matchmaking events, so it's not a restriction to not have already a construction form.
Yes.
No.
But it's the chicken and the egg, it's just to get some
Yeah, of course it is.
information.
But how do we, if we have concrete use cases, when do we suggest them, for example?
You can already, you can already suggest it when you are submitting the expression of interest.
Yeah.
So we are really happy to hear and learn about all the use cases that are out there, because obviously the goal is not only to just have any sites for deployment that are out there, but to have a diverse set of use cases.
Yeah.
Who are capable of, because at the end of the day, we also have to provide a complete validation.
Yeah.
Like realistically show like, okay, this functions in different environments.
Yeah.
So it's already great if you have a use case that you can provide it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But as said, it's not binding, it's not something official, this expression of interest form, it's nothing official, it's an informal way for everyone to communicate first towards us, but we are not here to keep this knowledge within us, we are here to actually link everyone together to create a community. So we would like to use this as an opportunity to raise awareness and to see who is out there interested in this.
Yeah.
One of the complications is that the data space preparatory action is not, linked directly consortium-wise to, the simple grant, which will later open up the call for pilots. So there's no guarantee, that the consortium with the networks doing the preparatory action and helping, do the matchmaking, will also be the ones operating. It's open game, everybody. We have said clearly we will do it. And we hope that we will be able to do it, but there's no, that guarantee. So formally, this process is, as you said, it's open. It's open for everybody. So also whoever gets to operate the simple grant will have access to the same information. So it's not like it's something that we hide. We are here to facilitate the preparation, so that think of it as preparing the open call well.
Yeah.
But the deadline is 24th of January on that. There was some information and so on. So that then needs to get selected, started, and then the open call starts. So it's to be able to be ready early to actually know what do you want, what do you need. So it's to build an informed deployment action.
Yeah.
But there's a cut. Formally, there's a cut. There's no link between the two.
By the way, we also have people attending online. So just for those who are online, please, if you have any questions, we can see it if you type something. So you're not excluded just because you're online. Everyone is welcome. Okay, so who is has some questions for us? Please go ahead.
One question about so I'm Eric Dubois from the LIST, Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology in Luxembourg. So we are associate partner from this initiative and also partner from the LIST Career Initiative. One question about the use case. One of the challenges for smart cities use case is that we are at the crossroad of different domains, like mobility, energy, and many others. We have also in smart cities and communities, so perhaps this domain is a little bit different. So I was wondering how you see the interaction that we have with the other domains, and also is there something very specific to the community, for example, that we need to develop at the level of this action and also at the level of the use case.
Well, I think it's something that
Timo, I work for the city of Ghent as well, and I think I can elaborate on that because in the deployment action, there are already in the context very specific requirements for the pilots. They have to cross at least 2 domains, and they have to cross at least 2 geographical areas, cities and/or communities. Why is this? Because there are data spaces defined. The smart cities and communities data space is different in that regard, that it's cross-domain by default, because as a city administration, you are confronted with challenges that are cross-domain by default. So the pilots should define a use case that at least crosses two domains, let's say mobility and ecology, whatever. This is an obvious link. And then be able to define a use case that is also replicable in another city or community. So that's how I interpret the call text for deployment action, basically.
Additionally, if I might just add, the core idea is also already through in the creation of the blueprint, that we bring together the supply and the demand side. So it's already, I think it's also relevant to this to know that we really are, I mean, the aim here is to really have something robust out there that represents all stakeholders' inputs.
I mean, we kind of know the model because it was the same, we did synchronicity and organicity and so on. So we also know all the difficult parts. And here explicitly in the call, it says cross-sectorial. Okay, so it must be at least 2 recognized domains, and that's a list, I should say. Also 2 countries, at least we can be 1. But what we want ultimately to select, if it were us who were to give advice to the consortium that were to select, we would say we would need a diversity. So it's not only what the individual pilot brings, it's you want a diversity, something which is maybe, oh, we have, the 30 municipalities in Flanders working with the 30 municipalities in, I don't know, somewhere else. That would be one very interesting dynamic, because you have scale built in from the beginning. Then maybe you would have like a metropolitan area working with another metropolitan area, or metropolitan area that I don't know, spans borders or something. I mean, so we want this diversity on the structural side. And then also, I mean, diversity on the technology side. I think it would be important to try out different things. Some would be very AI robotics interested, like last mile stuff, and also energy. And then we need to have the different verticals in a way. So 10 to 12 cross-sectorial pilots would together have to represent a spectrum, because the point is to validate the blueprint and to evolve the blueprint with feedback from reality. So I mean, it's not only what is the perfect case. We don't need 12 perfect cases, because then they would not be perfect. So there's really this, this is also why this conversation and the ongoing conversation that will happen in the stakeholder forum and so on in the data space is so important. But maybe just to make one point, there is no requirement who leads a pilot. It could be a company that calls up a few cities and say, hey, do you want to work? Or it could be a city that champions it and say, oh, it could be the association of municipalities that says, why don't we do this? And then they recruit some cities and then they offer it out. I mean, there's no requirement who leads, so we would also probably like to see a diversity in that. But one thing is sure, and that comes from all the networks. On the front row, we always do that, we will have the buyers, we will have the systems. So the technologies and the companies and so on will always have to serve the needs. So that is a fundamental, but they don't have to be the cities leading.
I would, do you have more questions now?
Yeah, a few, but.
Because one of the, just before we go to one of the recurring questions we received were questions about the cascading funding. Is this something that you are clear with, or is it something you would also like to have more information about or clarification about how the funding works?
More information, please.
Very simple as always.
Please go ahead.
No.
If you know how it works.
Okay, so we are working with the cascading funding. And so the idea is that there would be some money dedicated to the pilots, but the rest, the other half of the funding would have to come from them, essentially. So one of the things that we were asked quite often, like, okay, how can you do this co-funding? And Martin already has said, well, I don't want to say something serious. I remember we talked about this once, that you can request it through national or something.
Any. So we have a little bit of experience now that the Digital Europe program is starting up. example, the data space with the TEF and so on. And actually, you have to demonstrate when you apply that you have the co-financing either from national level or commercial or whatever, take it out from the sky. It must be from, an EU 27 source. So we're not taking, dirty money, as it were, in the sort of sovereignty feeling. But you have to document it when you apply. And then you don't have to document it anymore. So it's very simple and also a little bit, to me, confusing that there's this hard requirement up front, and then there's nothing. You can claim the cost if you do the work, and you just get half reimbursed. It's very simple. To get, per pilot, there's 1.5 million, that's the maximum. You can ask for less. And then you just have to have activities for the double amount and document those activities, the achievements, even if they fail. And come on, if we have 12 pilots, maybe half will be decent and 3 will be excellent. Maybe if we're good, we'll have 10 excellent ones, but there will be some duds. That's the nature of the pilots, so don't worry. But you don't have to document, you just only get half, right? So you claim the bills and you get half. End of story. That's how currently the guidance is. We haven't started the TEF yet, so we'll see, but that's how they say.
Can you say this for the TEF?
More or less completely, it's the same program.
Can co-funding come from other EU projects?
So it's called synergy funding. And from the Digital Europe program, yes, you can use RRF, Next Generation EU, you can use Interreg, ERDF, and so on. But it has to be declared. So if you have an Interreg project, you have to ensure that Interreg accepts that you use this. If you use the RRF, the Recovery and Resilience Fund, 750 billion, that's being shuffled around, you have to ensure that your member state ticked the box.
Then it becomes a national fund.
Well, then it becomes synergy funds. They're just very particular provisions to avoid double funding. It is, of course, double funding, but it's okay. But you just have to, and it's actually not in the Digital Europe program, you have to declare it. It's that it's okay with Interreg or the RF. And if your member state did not tick the box when they negotiated with Ursula, you can't. But Interreg, you can just build it into the project, and if the particular Interreg part accepts, it's okay. And there's all the normal rules about how much as an SME you can receive. That has not changed.
And the overhead is 7%.
Yes.
It's already 15.7 million euros minimum to the pilots, which is 85% of the total.
85%, yes.
Yeah.
So the complete budget is so that there's 2.7 million for the operations.
Yes.
And then the rest
Sorry,
plus double because you get co-finance. So it's 33 million, 33 point something, right?
Yeah, but sticking to the 15 million for the 10 to 12 pilots means indeed if you go from 10 pilots, 1.5 million per pilot, 3 years. So a pilot is around the size of 500,000 euros per year.
Yes, so it's actually it's 1 million per year because you get up to 1 million but the pilots would not necessarily be 3 years because the frame wherein the pilots happen is 3 years. So there's pretty much a guarantee that it cannot be, it may be 1 or 1.5 years. So it's pretty
Rapid timing,
And there is we could have several ways. We could have a rolling call, so it doesn't have to be like in waves. We could ask first to start with 5, perhaps, or we could start with, so it can come in waves as you become ready. But it has to be wrapped up and reported and done by the end of the mothership project. So maybe a year and a half, 2 years is the maximum for the actual pilot.
And going back to the expression of interest, do you aim for one use case per expression of interest, or can we state our expression of interest with all the use cases that we envision?
Yes.
Yeah, the more information we get.
Yeah, the better.
Yeah, but
No,
you
you
want
don't
us
have to
to
separate.
send 3 separate
No,
expressions?
I think the form you can put several, yeah.
Because you're talking about objectives for the pilot. And that means that we send out multiple expressions of interest for each individual pilot.
No, I mean, I said it's an informal communication here, so
True.
you can already describe it there, like, we have, I mean, that section, you can be like, okay, we have these several ones, and, I mean, we, people sitting here, we're gonna be reading it, so we just heard you already, it's, you can also send us, like, anyone, also people online, please just, you can always send a follow-up email to the email address that we have, which is DS4SSCC@oscities.org. And we can always answer any questions. Do we have any more questions?
I did not hear you say that you could not send separate. So if it's easier for you to manage, if you have, for instance,
Ah, yeah.
different partners.
Of
Yeah.
course.
I think we're all,
Yeah,
it's up to you.
Yeah.
Whatever suits you, yeah.
Exactly, very good. And for,
Okay, then I have a question that you may already have answered then. But what, if you don't make an expression of interest by the 2nd of December, you can still participate
of course,
afterwards in any of the pilots that will, okay.
of course.
You can wait last minute and not contribute to the
Yes.
community effort of getting the best call, you can do that.
Yeah, okay.
Look, I mean, this is also like right now here, I think it's a rather somewhat informal gathering here, so we can just safely say that the goal here, the objective here is to generate knowledge sharing. It's a knowledge sharing effort here. And it's not merely about data spaces, but was, for example, is also working with, in several domains, so to say. So it's also an opportunity to discuss linking other initiatives, talking about, so if we know that, for example, if we hear that, there is also, for example, let's say something about digital twins, we know that you guys are out there, we can connect, you guys can connect to each other. So as in the expression of interest form, you can also think at the end that you would like to participate later on in the knowledge sharing part of this.
Yeah.
But I said, she's just in here, she's covering governance, so I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the stakeholder forum, that would be great to have as many people as possible. And like, yes, share knowledge.
Yes.
Make sure we're all aware of what we're doing. We can connect. Absolutely.
Maybe just following on that, on the formalities. So there was a question also, do you have to sign the declaration of living in the EU? Or if you're not a municipality or public institution, do you need to sign the supporters? And that is not a hard requirement. So, I mean, the Commission cannot require anyone to do anything informal. I mean, they can only do formal things. So you could not submit an expression of interest, you could not sign, but you don't come across as a sort of community pillar if you don't. So I mean, these are also important facts. So there's a very formal procedure, the preparatory action, and then the deployment action, and everything that happens around, linking to policies. That's more like making a case why you are helping Europe test and validate the blueprint element.
This is also a way to just avoid any kind of gatekeeping.
Okay, but then I have a follow-up question. When you talk about test and validate the blueprint, and it's pretty much a technical blueprint.
And there is also a governance part. There's a
governance part.
And
But I'm thinking about like procurement as well. Would that
I think that would be probably in the
Yeah.
governance part, absolutely,
Yeah.
between different type of partnerships, and, obviously the private sector, but also, civil society, academia, and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not only the technical
No.
blueprint, absolutely not.
And how will this feedback loop work, and how will you evaluate the difference?
So part of it is the stakeholder forum, obviously, so we will be in touch and co-developing this, first of all, with a core group of cities, the city, there may be 8, I have at the moment 8 cities that are working on the data scheme, and so that is an ongoing process until the end of the project. But there will be contact points, and there will be validation, and we'll be presenting what we're doing, and we get feedback. in the stakeholder forum and also in a broader group of cities, both like the supply and the demand side of things.
But also, I mean, procurement and procurement clauses, so validated sets of legally, vetted text that you can put in the procurement. That happens also in other places. So, Amsterdam has been working on the procurement clauses for fair AI, and that's very much in the communicity action where 100 pilots is going to do things with hard-to-reach communities and minorities. There is actually a particular effort now coming up quite soon, I think, on certification and validation, because you don't want to put things in your tenders unless they're certified. So I mean, I think the point here is also to try and learn which action is best suited to test a particular thing. So we have the TEF, the testing implementation of this AI and drones, all that. We have the procurement side, the big bias initiative. Some of you are part of that with DG Grow and so on. But it's just there's so many things. So we need to learn how can this particular data-based deployment be most focused and not do the same thing as all the EDIs, the European Digital Innovation Hubs, will already be doing, the TEF and so on. So it's also to avoid that, I mean, or to be able to give guidance. Oh, by the way, that is much better done with this instrument. There's the 5G pilots also now. So if you want to do things with 5G, you can more or less submit the same pilot both to the 5G CEF call and to this call, but why not tweak them in a way where it gets most bang for the buck because it's targeted on what the particular call does. So it's not just about the single pilot, it's not about a single call, it's also the context, which is why the organizations really are trying to grok how the Commission can actually help us. Not just throw a lot of funding and then it just falls through the cracks. So to learn how to make it most what do you call it, focused.
We're here to create solutions and not anything else really. So, and I think combining all these or like having a knowledge and overview of all these actions that can relate to each other is very important.
Yeah. It's a core mission also for the Living EU, and of course
that we're also linked to. So
CEMR, so the association of the associations, so the SKRs and the VNGs, and I don't know if you have a municipal association in Luxembourg, or if it's just Luxembourg, but CEMR has actually all municipalities, all 80,000 and regions in Europe. Yeah. So I mean, it's really a joint effort where everyone formally is represented.
more questions, or should I start with it again? Okay, so
One question, sorry, about the liaison with the powerhouse. I think it's also part of the code.
Yes.
Do you see something specific?
The new European Bauhaus?
Yes.
Yes. Should I say something? Being a little bit, how many are involved in Bauhaus actions? There are 6 lighthouses, and then there's a CSA, the DigiNet, and there's Create, which is sort of trying to somehow manage. So the colleagues from DigiNet were just presenting here also earlier, and the Bauhaus is, you could say, I think the phrase is, you have to support the Green Deal or the Green Digital Transformation based on the Bauhaus philosophy. What the hell is that? But from the digital side, it's very much developed by this action called DigiNet, and that's a digital toolbox or something to support the European Bauhaus. And it's managed by the same unit in the Commission, the World Communities, as the data space. So you could see it as the social, aesthetic, circular digital toolbox to support. But we will also have a digital twin toolbox and so many other things. But the good thing is that it's really the same unit that drives that development. And I think in practice we will see also DigiNet being part of the committee. They're not formally part of Living EU as a supporter, but Living EU brings in the European Bauhaus as well, so that those doing this, something called the 6th mission, the Bauhaus, so a late addition, it doesn't run counter because of course many of the issues are the same. So if you want, I mean, you could build a pilot supporting directly stuff you do with the European Bauhaus, or if you were late for the Bauhaus thing, you can do a new pilot and more or less do an extra lighthouse. You don't get 5 million, you get 3. But, no, so it's really mixing and match. And I think it's also an evaluation criteria in the relevance section. So if you want 5 points there, I mean, European Bauhaus, if you can describe how you take that agenda, you can do so many other things.
Then I have another question. Now it's getting quiet. Now, when you talk about that, so I'm thinking about the 100 climate neutral cities.
Yes.
Would that be rewarded as well in the same case as working with the European Bauhaus to make like pilots together with these focused on 23 cities, for example?
Do you want me to say something about that? So first, I think we should not confine to the 100. It's the mission on climate neutral smart cities.
Yeah, but it's the mission, I mean, yeah.
Right, because, I mean, first the goal was 100, and now it's already more, and so, but you know, the goal is by 2030 have 100, and then by 2050 have all. So to be the first climate neutral continent. And yes, that will be certainly in the relevance criteria. And the relevance criteria will be set by the consortium that gets to operate it, but it will of course reflect the context. So there is no surprise there. So in the relevance, yes, you don't have to do both the Bauhaus and the Green Deal and everything, but it's a way of showing that you are supporting policies. It's like being a civil servant. You look up and you see what are the policies, and it's probably a good idea to somehow link your action to a political priority. Yes, we will of course interestingly have a new commission in 25. So already now all the national governments are thinking about which commission post they want. So there's a lot of, I mean, who knows? The big tickets can also change. So it's not just the current ones; it's also the upcoming ones.
Then, for example, another topic that I think so far I've been discussing with the other cities, what you already touched upon was the use cases themselves to be cross-sectoral. So is this something, because we are not only here to have questions, but also discuss the challenges that you may find? So is it, for example, something that the people present here and online, is it something that, for example, you would like to brainstorm about or discuss what can be, what use cases can you match with what, like to complete this? Or is it something that you are quite comfortable with and you know how you would like to move forward? Like what kind of use cases you would like to match with what? Because we, for example, we have a lot of mobility and
So the domains are mobility, pollution, climate resilience, and energy.
yeah.
I think in context. There are a few obvious connections to be made there. But then, yes, this is what we use when we brainstorm on use cases with our approach in South Holland. Mm-hmm. It's a diverse province, has space for all these 4 domains.
I think this is also where we really need to learn from the Commission. Also needs to learn what are the real issues. I think that you've been trying to do this for the whole human life. I mean, so also trying to bring the learnings. Say yes, it's easy to write 4 domains. But if you just then clerically create a pilot to fit the paper, not to fit, the needs, and we fail. So we also want to bring that pushback. I mean, if this is too difficult or stupid or whatever, I think that's not written in stone. Of course, it's the starting point. Why not have the energy? There's a big push on energy for everyone, and so on. There are reasons, of course, why these are in there.
Yeah, and some use cases are more suitable for sharing with some regions in Europe than others. I mean, if you have a port use case with the city of Madrid. I don't know where that port is, but it's not that big. So, and from a city like Rotterdam, it is important to have sort of the port of Rotterdam included.
It's rather the concrete examples that I've been discussing. The interested part is like how to match one with another, for example. So if this is something that could be a challenge, then we're also open to discuss that. Are there maybe any other challenges, like technical challenges, that you are facing when you are thinking about?
Do you provide a description of what this domain is, where the extension of the domain is? I mean, if we talk about heat batteries, is that a climate resilience solution for when it gets really cold, or is it an energy solution?
I can say a little bit about the experience. Many of you have that as well. Of course, these domains or silos, they mix and match, and that's kind of a management approach to manage them. But we have, as you said, we have the territorial approach. We have to manage it all. So that's really up to you. I mean, the people who are working with it. But I think it's also a quality that you come with something that mobilizes locally. That this is really an issue. It's not just something we were, hijacked to do because there was a company who had a great idea. So it really has to resonate with, the needs that come up through the forum, so the digital forum, but also, that's the environmental forum. There's so many places where these things can be validated. So I think it would be great also to use not just your own imagination, but bring, issues from other conversations here.
Our starting point is the challenges by local businesses and residents.
So I think that's the point. We're trying to create data space. So we're trying to pilot a number of data spaces in which data sharing will prove that there is an economic and ecological value. So I think you can abstract the domains away a little bit if you can just prove that you're across silos and across different layers of the government sharing data. So that's the only and the whole point, I guess.
And it's also to resource overcoming some of the barriers. Everybody who's worked trying to pry data out of the cold hands of some department or some contractor, you just know there's no incentive to doing it. Yes, on the big picture, holistically, great. But it's also to break, some of those barriers. Energy, the tariffs, the STO, the DSOs and the TSOs, those who actually make money of moving, energy around. They don't want these fancy energy communities because their tariffs would just go down. So it's also to try and a little bit, be able to overcome some of these very practical barriers that are out there. So piloting, it means also having a little bit more space because you can do things that normally isn't so easy to do, and there's resource to, buy the data or whatever. And say, if this data was available on fair terms, then actually we can do this. So it's also to remove gravity for a moment in some parts, but of course in a realistic way. There's a big discussion on tariffs on energy. There's a big, pros and cons on the whole mobility, including last mile. So these thorny issues, if creating a data space requires some legislation regarding tariffs or something, then that would be a fantastic outcome because it points not just to, technology can fix this. There's nothing we can do with technology because this is political. That's also.
That would mean that if you could start from a blank sheet of paper, designing the neighborhood of the future. You have design aspects, and one design aspect could be mobility, housing, density of housing. That also automatically leads to energy, also to street lighting and safety. Because if you do not have a public car, but your kids have to rely on shared mobility to go to school, you have to rely on the lighting part as well, safety. So all of it adds together, and these are all data coming from different providers in the network that need to be combined. So if that already by a theoretical theoretical procedure, not even impacted physically, could that apply? Because you've done the work. The only thing you need to do is find time and money to implement it all.
I think, I personally think this is a very, very good example for what it means to be a data space for smart sustainable cities and communities, because it's geographically delineated and it's across multiple sectors to facilitate specific real use case citizens are experiencing. So this is for me at least how I interpret this data space, what this data space should be about.
But just going back to the harbor, that's a different implementation of the same data than compared to Madrid, where it's about kids going to school safe. But it's the same technology, same sets of data provides potentially. Yeah. So it could work.
And it's all part of that rainbow coverage that we want to achieve, right? In 12 balance, including the types of technology, including the geographical area, including the domains. So, but that's your.
But if you see all the data spaces, I don't know, I lost count, how many are being, over the next couple of years, being set up in Europe. But there are two that are different than all the others. You all know Destination Earth. That's like where everything's going. We'll have a full picture of everything. But it's very high level and it's low resolution. And it's, it's up there. Then you have all the verticals, the mobility, the health, the blah, 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 blah. And then actually on the ground.
Yeah.
You have the mirror, the territorial view from the ground, which is very detailed, very high resolution, very here and politically really situated. And between those two, the heaven and earth, you have the verticals. And I mean, there is a good plan on how everything ends up in Destination Earth, but there is currently no good plan on how the hell to get all the 80,000 local authorities in line.
Heaven and hell.
Well, yes, maybe. I didn't think of that.
That's why it's important to have work which is like, we are actually all encompassing and having governance in place and having efforts and also methods that we develop to create the robust architecture.
And politically, I mean, the mayors of Europe will not, the SKRs and the VNGs will not accept just being given something to just technocratically implement. It will not fly politically. So, I mean, even for the political reason, there has to be some kind of recognition of the needs from the road.
So we have 9 minutes left. That means that, are there any urgent questions that we should revisit now? Yes, can ask it now, and also later, of course.
I have to figure out how to apply.
But we said, I don't know if you were here earlier, but earlier we also said like, the first question was that if there's going to be like a kind of effort of matchmaking, like, so it's also that the idea is also like having a pool of expressions also offers an idea for whoever is assessing it. Now we are assessing it in the first round that you can see, okay, like you may indicate it, for example, like this is what I intend, but as if it is an informal way of expressing your interest. It's fine if you can't actually realize it in the future. You can already indicate it, like you are open to being suggested, and then we can already see like, okay, we can also think with you where we can link you.
But from that, I got that you first have to apply,
Yes.
and then there's the matchmaking.
Yes.
So if you're not applying, you're not invited for the matchmaking.
Well, actually, the matchmaking is just whoever. This is an informal session facilitated by the Database Blueprint. But since there's no operational deployment team yet, so we are anticipating something. So I guess the matchmaking is ongoing. And you can take a territorial approach. Say, okay, South Holland wants to work with whoever. Or you could take a technical approach and say, hey, the ones working on this technology we want to try. Or you could say, we want the digital forum to create. I mean, you can apply all kinds of logics. We already work in Sweden. So, I mean, it would be great to see a diversity of approaches.
Technology is there or will come. And as you said, technical approaches in the end, what's most accepted. You need to define the needs.
And legislation.
Yeah.
And that legislation will be crap unless there is, some same input to the
That's
legislation.
what I meant. If you start with a blank sheet of paper, defining the future in a quick sense, it will help you determine what the technology you need, whoever will be the provider of technology, it has to adhere to standards, not industry standards, but maybe data security standards or privacy data, whatever, you know my topic. So it's something you have to bring together, and then once you come to the realization point, you know what procurement aspects you need to focus on. So, okay, this is what we agreed on, and it will lead to some regional or national, maybe European standard. This is what we have to get working on, because then we, in the joint effort, can develop this.
I mean, we know that the legislation is coming. So it's like, you know that the meteor is on its way. So, but you can actually influence it. I think that's one of the main
You see, if the Americans wait until it's there and then shoot satellite. Maybe not that's what it is.
I think the Artemis actually left the planet today. When you follow the Artemis launch, I think.
Launch?
Yes, after 2.5 months of trying.
Okay, great.
So in the remaining 5 minutes, if there are no urgent questions, I would suggest, because at first we could be the opportunity to introduce ourselves, but I didn't know about it as the questions that we can anticipate, so I just wanted to get rolling. But then we would like to hear who are basically in the same group with, so if you could just all quickly introduce yourself so that we all know who is here.
Yeah, so I think
Yes.
South Holland will be applying for some use cases in the energy, mobility, and pollution domains, open towards partnerships and working on an open urban platform.
And his name is Luke.
My name is Luke, yes.
So my name is Eric from the list, so I mentioned. So basically the use case we have in mind is a use case about the impact of renewable energies, the electromobility, and yes, or the intersection of the two, which means the pressure on the grid, the electricity grid. Because it's clear that you can inject more and more photovoltaic electricity, but the grid has some limits, and at least in Luxembourg, the grid provider do not want to change it. And so they would prefer that we balance this injection of electricity with more consumption or change of behaviors by the consumer, the prosumers, and also the role of electromobility, which is another way also to use it. So we will, yes, electromobility, renewable energies, and energy communities.
Klaus von Rice, Research Institute of Sweden, and we haven't discussed this fully, but I think we would like to bring a few municipalities in this and work with some in other countries. And for example, on water-related data, is that something that's they're very interested in, and also climate-related data that the municipalities need to make decisions, but they can't get them because they can't extract it from the code hands.
Yeah, so my name is Robert. I work for a company called SenseOfit. We are a tech company, a vendor. So we deliver a middleware, IoT integration, and data sharing platform. We do have a long history of being part of a lot of finance projects, together with RISE. So just learning things here. So today, but our platform is based on fireworks, so yeah, I'm looking forward to participate. Let's see if it's water or something else.
Hello, representing well, today IoT Sweden. So we are trying to promote innovation within IoT in Sweden and the public sector. But of course, we need suppliers and research in the community. So, and the other half of me represents SKR or SALAR, Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions. And I think from our perspective, we think Heaven and Earth is really interesting. So we have some discussions regarding how to start to create communication to science, but making sure to include the verticals. So we're just trying to boost the data space that would make it happen.
The messengers between heaven and earth are called angels.
How did you call it, the angel that was going up?
It's an anecdote, but it's fun, I think. So our platform that we deliver is called Bygyo, and it's from Yggdrasil, which in the Nordic mythology is the tree of the world, right? So in the tree, in the Nordic mythology, you have a little squirrel running up and down between the gods and then the people. And this squirrel is named Ratatosk. So what we did was an implementation of fireware compliant components, which we have shipped back as open source, which is a context broker. So of course we named that Ratatosk. Right.
So you can choose.
Can you just clarify the Ice Age for me?
Yeah.
Now I understand the whole thing.
Depending on the mythology, you're an angel or a squirrel or maybe they're all.
I don't know if we will have the room, so maybe this is continue because they may come in. So Albert?
So my name is Albert Service. I'm from the Netherlands. I work with Mattel Innovate. We are a company leading European funded projects, but we're also heavily involved in fireware and developing shared development, open development of building blocks that are not there yet, but needed in data privacy, data security, data policy. And we bring them back as you do as generic enablers to the community. Because together we have to develop the solution we need. The data space is a definition, but the functions are to be defined.
Do you live in South Korea?
No, but it's very close. We're in the Netherlands, that's right.
Hello everyone, my name is Claudia Freire. I'm project manager in Porto Digital, the CEO of Porto. And Ricardo, my colleague, is all about will what to be doing.
Basically, okay, my name is Ricardo, from CEO of Porto, from Portugal. By the way, we also use fireware architecture. Our main architecture is based on fireware, and we build a lot of entities, a lot of information around the repository. We are currently changing for a variety of data, and yeah, it's going on. Now, the idea is to keep adding projects in open source and collaboration together. This would be a good way to open our
Maybe also to mention that you support the Community 100 AI pilots in Helsinki.
And also all of as well, there is a sandbox mixed course project.
Hi everybody, my name is Aino Natanen. I work for Video Helsinki, which is an in-house innovation company owned by the city of Helsinki. And we do a lot of projects for our community and then a lot of to do with the visualization and open data use for the city. So we do have kind of a primary customer. We use work closely with companies and universities and research institutes and all sorts of data and open data. But also energy, mobility, smart city solutions. So a lot of topics here for us and use cases as well.
No, sorry.
Sorry. And just, or you wanted to add to this, or you wanted to add to this?
No, I just want to say.
Just one second, that I thought that we just left earlier, just because she didn't get a chance to introduce herself, so I will inform her that she works for the digital SMEs. So they're also interested, or they expressed that they would be interested in the deployment phase together with cities because they are in touch with cities as well. And they were also looking to want to find a way to apply this.
Well, the team here behind, I think it's the important point is that it's the networks going together to do this, and we've been working now for at least 3 years, but many more. Your cities with NL, with everyone, to actually get aligned. So it's not like, oh, it was this network that got to operate this one. And then as soon as the other network gets funding, they completely, do something else. So actually we try and say, oh, governments, why don't your cities take the lead on that together with CMR? Technically, why wouldn't that be the technical part? So we try in a way to also to make things easier for both the buyers and the suppliers and all the ones who do research.
All right, welcome. I thank everyone for coming. I will mention again that I have a point of contact for the data space initiative, so you can always reach out to me. You can also reach out to the team by emailing DS4SSCC@classcity.org. And we also have now LinkedIn and Twitter and hopefully a website. It's all under one. So I look forward to hearing from all of you, and we'll be in touch. Anything else you'd like to say?
Is there more like Wild in Barcelona in the program that's relevant for this conversation?
Tomorrow, exactly. Tomorrow will be, this initiative will be hosting, moderating, will be the lead on the EC Boost session, which is applying and collecting and applying data in a smart cities context. So Justine will be on the panel and Timo will be on the panel. And then we also have AI for cities, Compare and Aurora on the panel, and we'll be discussing these questions. So if you have, you're interested, you're welcome to join. I know it's 9 a.m., but we're happy to see you.
The whole thing opens at 9, right? So starting anything at 9 is just. It will not start at 9.
And for the people who attended online, thank you for coming. And I will close the session now.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Thank you.
Thank you for coming again.